When you're trying to flip houses, there's a million things to learn, and your attention is spread razor thin. So you need to learn the 4 things you should actually focus your attention on. What it unfortunately took me a really long time to figure out is that your bandwidth is actually really minimal. And what the most successful people out there do is they learn how to effectively utilize the minimal bandwidth they have by prioritizing the right things. I mean, just think about it. There are so many examples of people trying to have an all-in-one approach. It just leads to a lot of mediocrity.
If you think that's great, try the body wash.
I mean, you want your hair to be silky smooth, right? So what is it that you should focus your time on? Is it project management, tax mitigation, auctions, keeping tight books, legal liability, meeting contractors, learning construction, property management, saving cash, the MLS, the multiple listing service, aka the market, raising a fund? Now, obviously all these things matter, but the question that I'm asking is what you should personally spend your time on. And that's what we're going to get to the bottom of today. But first, I need you to understand the 4 controls of real estate. Unless you include your mentality, there's only 4 real things that you can control when it comes to real estate. Number 1 is the deal. This is your acquisition price, your underwriting, and your lending. Next is the strategy. What are you actually going to do with the property? You need to know that before you purchase it. Are you going to flip it? Are you going to rent it? Are you going to clean it up, put it right back on the market? That's your strategy. Maybe you're not going to do anything to it. You're just going to throw a renter in it, get it refinanced, and you're good to go. Then number 3 is the work. That's actually carrying out your strategy. Did your strategy include a scope of work with a renovation? Probably, if you're watching this channel. So if it did, now you actually land that plane. This is where your project management comes into play. And then number 4, the market. This is what you actually get in rent every month, or what you sell it for on the MLS. Now there are some strategies, as always, to increase that price just a little bit, but for the most part, the market is the market. It's going to give you what it gives you. Now it is your job to find what range you're in and get to the top of that. All right, now that you got that info, let's go hit the all-weather approach. Now this is where it's time to be ice cold. You see, when I first started out in this game, I, like a lot of people do when they first start out, think, man, I want to make this house just like I would want to live in it.
I'm gonna be the designer because I know about colors and shapes.
And, you know, that seems great. It really feels like it's the right thing to do. But the reality is, what most people end up doing is over-renovating for that specific neighborhood. And then what happens is they have to price the house for rent or for sale in a way that makes sense for them, which actually just prices out whoever was gonna buy in that specific neighborhood. So you might think you're doing the right thing, but you're actually doing a disservice. But the reality is, if you really do have good intentions for the people that are going to be buying or living in your homes, which I hope you do, well, the best thing that you can do is stay in the game. And I promise you that if you over-renovate houses, you are not going to stay in the game. And that's why one of the 4 items that made it to the all-weather list, the 4 things that you should be focusing on, is building smart scopes of work and becoming better at it every single day. And that's choosing what is needed for that property, not what you want to do. Knowing where to draw the line between what should be done and what shouldn't. There's no real list I can give you on how to do this. It really does just take time and experience and building skills and seeing different things and being able to see around corners that you weren't able to see around yesterday. It takes discipline. But that's why you're here, right? Well, in the springtime, it's all about planting seeds that are going to grow later. And that's why this section is about leveling up your vendors. And when I'm talking about vendors, yeah, there's lots of different types of vendors, but I'm really talking about wholesalers and contractors. Those are the main vendors that are going to drive your business. Now, that's not to say that you don't want to find a great real estate agent, a great property manager, an attorney, a CPA, a bookkeeper, and so on and so forth. For the most part, you're going to find those guys once and hopefully keep with them for a long time. Now, you may have different attorneys for different things or different bookkeepers for different businesses, but for the most part, you keep one and you keep working with them. They're more stationary, let's say. But with wholesalers and contractors, it's basically directly correlated with the scaling of your business. The more wholesalers and contractors you find, the more deals you'll be able to take down and the more rehabs you'll be able to execute. My suggestion is that you keep a depth chart of all of your different vendors, especially focusing once again on wholesalers and contractors, and keep adding to that depth chart. You should always be out there recruiting and looking for guys to add to your depth chart, and then you treat it like any sales pipeline. You get them into the funnel, and then you keep working with them. You keep building a relationship, and eventually you actually work with those people. So for wholesalers, I'm always looking for guys that just got in the game, because usually the ones that have been in the game for a long time, well, they've probably built a massive buyers list and it's pretty close to buying a house off the MLS. So I'm looking for like the newer guys or the guys that have been in the game for a little bit, or guys that really want to have somebody they can trust to take down a deal instead of dealing with the huge buyers list where these shaky deals may fall out of contract. And then make sure you deliver that for them. And so I suggest working one relationship at a time, especially when it comes to wholesalers. Meet a new one, work with them, show them that you can deliver, that when you go, you don't waste time and you always come through for them. And then once you have one, then go find another and then another. And then for contractors, well, I've done a lot of content on this, but basically you need to understand the profile that you're looking for and then constantly be approaching those guys and introducing yourself, showing them what you do, and then get them out to job sites to bid one at a time. And one other vendor that you want to focus on are banks/lenders, including your hard money lenders or private money lenders. One of the biggest mistakes you can make is only relying on one of these guys. The rug could be pulled out from under you really fast. And so make sure you're building lots of different relationships with lots of different types of lenders and types of banks that like to lend on different types of things. And a lot of times these guys are getting their money from elsewhere, and the rules might change for them. And so no matter how confident you feel, make sure you build multiple relationships. Next is none other than my favorite, finding hot deals.
What are your thoughts on that? It looks like
You see, when I started out in real estate, I thought that what you needed to do to be able to make money consistently is you needed to be able to whittle down the price of construction. And well, that's how I got here. However, in that time, what I actually found out is you can't whittle down the price of construction too much, because there just is a market price to do construction. I mean, people have to put food on their plates, and really it's in your best interest to make sure that they are. And so where the money is actually made is right up front on finding great deals. Now, a lot of you are out there buying razor thin deals, and then you get surprised on the project. And truly, after doing this for over a decade and hundreds of properties, I still run into things that I didn't anticipate. And so what is the best thing that you can do is get a great deal up front and make sure that you have financial contingency, you have space in the deal to make sure that you can face some of those issues that you're bound to run into head on. Now, there are a million ways to find great deals, and you'll hear a lot of people out there talking about it, and truly they have great ideas. Here is the way that has worked for me. I like to simplify things, as you know. First, you need to set up a home base so people know you're legit. So this is a website, a local phone number, this is an address, social media account, and make sure that they're active. And then you're gonna run outbound lead capture. It's pretty simple. There's mail and there's phone calls. There are companies out there that you can hire to do cold calling for you, and there's 1,000 places that you can send mail. I'm telling you, it works, especially if it's you answering the phones and you go work on your sales skills. That's part of finding hot deals, is you need to know how to negotiate a great deal. And a great deal is truly about a win-win scenario. You are looking for people who want to get out of their houses fast. They don't want to deal with the bullcrap of going to the market. They want somebody who's just going to take the things off their hands. So make sure that you build a reputation for being a person that comes through and does what you say you're going to do. All right, now we're talking about project management. Why is it the fall? Because we're going to be covering up everything like the leaves in the fall, right? Actually, what happened is I tacked on the whole season thing right at the end, but I figured if you got this far in the video, you were going to stick around to the end because you want to know what happens in project management, right? You can be the type of project manager that is really a micromanager and you're running these job sites all day, every day, but I promise you, you're going to eat up so much of your bandwidth that you're not going to have time to focus on the other things. So you have to actually become a good project manager, and that'll take up less of your time to get a similar output. And so there's really a few different levels of growing as a project manager. And we've done a whole video on this, but I'll make it quick for you. There's ground zero, which is disorientation. You don't know what the hell's going on. But then you move to PM planning, PM daily planning, where you know what's going on every job site every day. And every day you sit down and you go through the list of whatever projects you have going on, who's going to be on it. You follow up with the contractors to make sure your plan is getting carried out. That's what we call being in the weeds. But then you progress and you get into weekly planning, where you actually look at what you expect to happen the following week. You make a plan with the contractors and other vendors you have out on these job sites. And then at the end of the week, you look back and hold accountability to those things. That is called being in the trees. And then you zoom out even further and you're able to finally see the forest through the trees. This is where you get into the phases. You set up different checkpoints. Now, as you probably know by now, we have 6 different checkpoints, which we call phases, but having checkpoints, if you don't want to adopt our system, is very important, where you have stopping and starting points, and you can group up the jobs and the contractors that you have by these checkpoints, and it keeps everything in a tight group for you. At the end of each one of these checkpoints, you'll reconcile on your expectations with accountability and the money. And now we zoom out to a more aerial view, which is the project as a whole, which we've already covered. That was step number 1, setting a strong, smart scope of work. Now, a big part of being a great project manager is having funds and time on your side. You don't want to borrow just enough to barely do the project, because financial problems are going to come up, and so you want to make sure that you have contingency there. And same thing with time. If you expect to finish your project in a month, it's not going to happen. If you expect to finish it in 90 days, it's most likely not going to happen, especially if you just started out. I would plan more for like 6, maybe even 8 months. Even if you do think it's a small project, make sure the money works for that and the time, and then you have a good deal on your hands. And finally, it sucks, but you gotta be able to have hard conversations. I'm not talking about being an a-hole. I'm talking about setting expectations and then strongly holding accountability to things that you shook hands and agreed upon. That doesn't mean micromanaging, manipulating, or making up expectations out of thin air. You need to be very clear about your expectations in advance, and you need to take it upon yourself to make sure that they understood those things. Because when it all comes down and you have to hold accountability, there's just going to be a lot of finger pointing. And so you want to make sure that you're confident that you did really clearly, in a written and even videoed way, set clear expectations. I believe that if you want to be successful in this game or any other, you need to have a framework. And that's what I've tried to provide here for you. The 4 things that you really need to focus on to build the foundation of your real estate organization. But once you have your foundation, then you need to build the skills and the experience that goes with each one of those building blocks. And so check out this video here and start to build those skills. And good luck out there, investors.